Oh my God. Oh my God. It's such a pleasure every year to get to have so many people come and get to feel like they're a part of the world that we live in, you know, the 77, 78, now 79 of us at SEO Moz. Each year, Seattle is putting on a very nice show for you. I know it looks like we have sunny, beautiful, crystal clear weather. I can promise you that's not usually the case. But luckily this year, that's the way it goes. And I wanted to spend a little bit of time just talking through a few things before we kick off with some of our speakers. So I have two things that I'm gonna launch on stage. They're relatively small and minor. We'll have some bigger launches coming in the future. I think one later today or tomorrow. I wanted to talk a little bit about the state of our industry and a little bit behind the curtains at SEO Moz itself. So let's start. Laura has volunteered here and is just going to do an amazing job helping to introduce all the speakers, literally being up here every day, all day. So Laura, thank you so much for that. We really appreciate it. You're amazing. I ran a survey a couple weeks ago. Some of you might have seen it. I was tweeting it around. And I get this sense, gotten this sense for the last few years, despite being a very passionate kind of SEO purist, that SEO is getting to be a lot bigger than what we historically would call SEO, what I thought SEO was when I got into the industry in 2002, 2003. You know, make some pages accessible, put some keywords on them, build some links. And I mean, I was shocked in this survey to see this data. So what you're seeing here is green sort of people saying critical, right? And orange, they're saying they don't use it at all. And these different channels are, man, content marketing is actually going to is nearly as critical to SEOs as SEO is. I was mentioning this to John Doherty the other day, and he said, well, can you really separate the two? And I think that's the truth with a lot of these channels. In fact, when I asked about where people are planning on growing, even SEOs said they're planning on growing in content and in some other areas as much or more than they are in SEO itself, which is kind of fantastic. Links are still ruling the algorithm, right? But I think we have a question about how long that's going to be in place. 5 years ago, I would have been highly skeptical. 3 years ago, I was highly skeptical. Today, I'm a little less skeptical. I can finally see the start of some signals where we think to ourselves, yeah, I don't know if links are going to be it. They'll still be important, but they might not be the only thing for a long time. And getting that sense is interesting. Dwayne Forrester from Bing, who's here in Seattle, wrote about this on the Bing blog. He said, well, you know, I think I'm hearing maybe too many people who do optimization worry a little bit too much about links and too little about other stuff. And Google and Bing are keeping us on our toes. In fact, one of the things I love about the SEO industry as a whole and about our specific practice is that it changes so frequently and so often that every time I see an SEO is dead, I turn around and Google and Bing are doing something that makes the rest of the industry go, oh my God, we need to pay very close attention to SEO. And so it's almost like, you know, Penguin complain about it, you know, it beat up some of our sites, this kind of thing. But I go, well, it's paying your paycheck. I mean, if Google stayed stagnant, people would figure this stuff out. And they have not at all. I mean, the algo changes this year have been remarkable, huge. And they keep teams a little bit nervous. I have to admit that. We actually got one of those. Can I go back? We actually got one of these search quality notices. You might have seen Ruth wrote about it on the blog, which is pretty hilarious, right? I think I found this beautiful hornet's nest on the internet. I don't know if you guys have seen it. It's on one of the Black Hat forums. And I decided I couldn't resist. It was so pretty. I just had to give that sucker a kick. And then, you know, we had like 2 million more links pointing to our site according to Google Webmaster Tools over the next 60 days. And then we got an unnatural links warning. And so what's nice is didn't affect traffic, didn't affect rankings. So I'm still of the mind that negative SEO is a very, very, very challenging goal to achieve, but kind of cool to get that notice. Well, kind of, right? It's like a heads. By the way, Rand, did you know people are spamming your site? Yes, yes, Google, I knew. I did that. I mean, not exact, don't tweet that, right? Somebody shut the Wi-Fi. So Google, I will give them a hard time about this. I think that their transparency has been questionable for the last few years. And they speak very highly to this core value, right? They talk about it internally. It's a point of pride with employees. It's a point of pride with thousands of employees who don't even work in search. But in their core product, I think that they have a long way to go to really be transparent. In fact, I've been personally frustrated. I don't think they're living up to this core value, especially when you see things like not provided and the hypocrisy of not provided with them saying, oh, but we will provide it if you're paying us. Then you lose all claim to credibility in terms of protecting privacy, because you're clearly not really doing that. SEO Moz's total right now is something over 57% of our search traffic is not provided, keyword not provided, which is ridiculous. It's insane, and it's been climbing dramatically. So, when they say, oh, it'll never hit double digits. Never, really? It sure looks like a lot of digits to me. I have to give Google some credit, though. They do some things that I'm very proud of and that I would want to be associated with, and I think that they deserve to be commended for them. So first off, their Legalize Love project, which they launched worldwide. They actually, one of the moves that I thought was very brave of them is they didn't just launch this in, say, Europe and the US, where gay marriage are, generally speaking, very politically viable, right? Europe, it's 80, 90% plus. Here in the US, it's something over 50%. They're actually launching it and spending the most money in countries where Google operates, but that have the most bias against homosexuals. And I think that shows a lot of respect from them, right? Because these are also countries where they could easily be losing market share, where they could have people sort of against them. So I'm proud to be associated with Google in that respect. And I do see them taking action on things like SOPA and PIPA and some of these other referendums and initiatives to shut down the openness of the internet. They've got some great videos over on, I think this is Google Take Action, google.com/take action. So very impressive, right? I'm excited to see those kinds of moves from Google. And I think this year we have to recognize too that they've responded to some big criticism. So Will Reynolds, I know he was going for a run. I don't know, did he make it here? He's here, all right. So Will, for those of you who don't know, made a call out at Portland Search Fest earlier this year, right? He did a fantastic presentation. I absolutely loved the presentation where he talked about how if you're a white hat SEO, and for a lot of us pre-Penguin, this is how it was. If you're a white hat SEO and you're preaching white hat and don't acquire these kinds of links, Google's kind of making you look like an idiot. And for a long time, they really were. They were making us look like idiots because they were saying, we're saying white hat, don't engage in these kinds of manipulative activities, and then getting outranked by spammers who do it, and who stayed in those positions for a long time. Something like Penguin was, in my opinion, dramatically needed, just absolutely critical to the credibility of those types of statements. And so, I'm excited that these penguins rolled into town, having heard Will. I appreciate that. I've been impressed with Bing too. I switched to them as my sole search provider at home on my desktop computer, which I use pretty frequently. And Bing is pretty good. I would say for 80% of the searches that I do, 4 out of 5 searches that I do, I don't even notice the difference between Bing and Google. They're solid, they're good, and I really like the integration they've got going with Facebook and Twitter. The fact that they show sort of stuff that's trending on Twitter, that's been tweeted by my friends, that's been shared on Facebook, that's cool. It's what Google used to have before they switched to Google Plus entirely, and I appreciate Bing not forcing me to have to use their network, but integrating with the ones I'm already using. But they still do have a long way to go. I think those, it's those 1 out of 5 queries where I get frustrated, I don't see what I want, and I immediately go, okay, I'm gonna have to type in Google, go over there, reperform the query, and then I find what I want. And those 1 out of, I recognize I'm a highly technical user, but I think until they get to this point of true parity and even surpassing Google in terms of relevancy, they're gonna have a really tough time. So this is a good, what's that movie where the guy has amnesia? And Bing's like, oh, here's a list of movies where guys have amnesia. And Google, #1, Memento. Oh yeah, that movie. Good job. Google Plus is clearly making some headway. They announced at the Google I/O conference that it has 250 million active users, which is very impressive. This puts it in, I mean, literally there's only a couple networks, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, that can compete with that sort of size. And the Google Plus activity, fascinatingly enough, as it's gotten bigger and bigger, we're actually seeing them pull back a little on how integrated it is with SEO and with search engine optimization, with one exception, which is local, right? So Google Plus Places has become integrated. I would not actually be surprised to see that Google Plus continues to become critical to the practice of SEO. I wouldn't be surprised if next year when we had MozCon, there was as much discussion about Google Plus optimization as there will be this year about all of social combined. And the other interesting thing about the social world, for a long time we had this sense, right, in the marketing world that Facebook was going to be it. That, the couple billion humans who are connected to the internet on planet Earth are going to be using Facebook, and that's going to be the dominant network, and one network's going to win. Just similar to the way that Google has sort of won out over their competition over the last decade and a half. And actually, what we found is there's a lot of niches that are underserved and unserved and that are now getting served. So you have a ton of networks at scale. So Foursquare and Pinterest both just announced passing 20 million actives. StumbleUpon announced that they had passed 24 million. I mistakenly put 25. Reddit has 35 million actives. Tumblr at 50. This is weird, right? And so the frustrating part is, how the hell am I going to pay attention to all these networks? And the nice part is, oh, well, my job security is very good. Because right, there's no way that without great software, great people, great marketers, a lot of us, that any brand, any business, big, small, medium, I don't care, is going to be able to handle the diversity of understanding that's required for all of these networks. So because we live in this multi-channel world, we have to pay attention to what each of these channels do, and I think one of the biggest, most frustrating problems for all of us is still that last touch attribution, basically the last click that brings in the visitor who buys something, does something, almost always gets the attribution. And the simplicity of that model, when we all know that, for example, a visitor for a free trial to SEO Moz, I think Joanna reported on this 2 or 3 months ago, to us, the story was basically that the average number of times they visited our site before making a conversion was something around 7.5, right? So we're not capturing free trials on the first touch, the second touch, the third touch, the fourth touch, the fifth touch, the sixth. It's 7+. And it's no 2 channels, right? It's not 3 channels. It's like 7 different channels. They come in via tweet. They come in via Facebook. If you look, you can see that Twitter's responsible for something like 20%, a little under 15% of our site traffic for first-time visits, and it's responsible for, I think, 18 out of 5,000 direct last-touch conversions. But if you attribute wrong, we're going to think, oh, Twitter's useless. Get off Twitter. Jen, stop using that thing. What are you doing? Twitter. Oh my God. We really have a hard time measuring this. I think this is one of the problems that needs to be solved, and that there's ways to hack Google Analytics to get there. Mixpanel is getting good. Kissmetrics is getting good, but we're going to see a lot more of this. I also think that we have to recognize that because all of these changes, all of these frustrations, all these hard things that we have to deal with in the industry happen, we're incredibly lucky to be a part of that. Think how dynamic this industry is. Imagine yourselves right now at an orthodontics conference. No offense to orthodontists, I'm sure it's fascinating, but oh my God, is it anything like this? Are you going to see people being pumped on Twitter about, oh man, orthodontics 2012, yeah. I don't know. I'm sure there's something, well, this makes their mouth open even wider. That's really, One of the biggest problems that I hear from people all the time and that I get emails about, literally daily emails about from companies all over the world is, help me find someone like all of you to join my company, to help me out. How can I find those people? It's impossible, right? And the beautiful thing, as John tweeted here, if you work in online marketing, you better be at a job you love, because you're not going to be able to retain people in this industry, good people in this industry. They're going to have so many options and opportunities about where to go. And so Dharmesh and I would like to try and help out. So we launched a project earlier this year called inbound.org. And I would like to recognize John and Ben from Tailwind. Are you guys somewhere here in the audience over there? Awesome, fantastic. So these guys, they asked if they could build a job board for inbound.org and worked with Tom Critchlow, reached out to us. And Dharmesh and I were like, guys, we really don't have time. We can't manage this project. It's going to be too tough. And you know what they did? They built that thing anyway. They built it anyway, and then 4 days ago, reached out to me and said, hey, remember that thing that you said would be cool, but you didn't have time to help out and manage it? We built it. And it's live right now. It's at jobs.inbound.org, and you can post jobs there. There's a lot of good job postings up there. So for all of you who have employers who are recruiting, I know that many of your companies are, this can be a great spot. It gets around 40, 50,000 visits a month, all from people like us. So hopefully this can be a helpful resource. And right now, they've got it, so normally it's like $50 to post. Right now it is absolutely free if you type in MozCon as your coupon code. MozCon is your coupon code. So very cool. Thank you, gentlemen. That's awesome work. This is really beautiful and lovely. Great job, guys. I also want to provide a look inside SEO Moz. So we believe very heavily in transparency, and we're going to be getting more and more transparent about all the things that we do. But I did want to mention that we've done a lot of good things over the last 9 months, right? So we've launched a lot of new stuff. You've seen our redesigned tools page, most of your pro members, right? We've got new universal results tracking for images and local and all that. We have a bunch of new pro perks, thanks to Andrew Dumont, upgraded directories list. So Curtis, one of our guys, went through literally every directory you could find and figured out which ones were banned and penalized and removed them all. And fantastic work there. We have new custom reports in Pro. We've got an upgraded keyword difficulty tool. So many of you complained that, and I complained bitterly, that one of the big problems with keyword difficulty is if pages are brand new and we don't yet have page authority for them, keyword difficulty breaks. Now it doesn't. It uses some fresh signals and it uses domain authority and you get good scores, so 65%, right? It would be very hard to actually rank for the term Nexus 7 tablet, right? That's the truth, but before we'd give you a score of like 1, right? So all these kinds of things. Pro has some social data upgrades, which are fantastic. There's new stuff in there. I'm a heavy user of this product because I'm obsessed with how, like, can I maximize my click-through rate and get more people to follow me and all this type of stuff. So they've been fixing some stuff in there for me. There's new good webinars, and thank God they're not all from me anymore. It's really hard, right, to like build a webinar every month or two. We have a new API for MozScape, and that is a tremendously more powerful. Big credit to our big data team for working on this, and to Andrew as well. Fantastic stuff. I did want to call out, however, that transparently, MozScape is not nearly as good as it should be. I don't know about you guys. It's good. Open Site Explorer is quite good. Like it's definitely near the top of industry tools, but it's not nearly where we need it to be. It's not where it should be. Eric Engie, who I don't think is here. He's based in Boston, Stone Temple Consulting. You guys might know him. Did a great analysis comparing Majestic and SEO Moz, and MozScape. And he didn't just use people from, it wasn't just Alex and Dixon and like me and Matt Peters or something. It was a bunch of people from the community, from the industry. So I think Richard Baxter participated and Branko Rittman participated, and essentially rated. And you can see that, it's kind of 3 to 3. So Majestic is good for these 3 things, and MozScape's sort of better for these 3 things. I can tell you that one of the things we're doing with that big investment is putting several $1 million of hardware into a data center in Virginia, which has low latency to Europe and the US, also has a direct connect up to Amazon. This is a photo that our engineers who flew out to Virginia took as they were installing machines. And there's going to be something between $5 and $6 million of hardware in this new data center that will be supposedly between 1/100th and 1/1000th as likely to fail as the machines we're currently running on Amazon. So right now we're spinning up an index every week. I think Amazon costs last month were over $600,000 just for MozScape processing. And this is a big, big challenge for us. So we have a lot of new engineers, some great hardware, some very smart people, and we're working on this problem. And we hope, I think both Majestic and us hope to win in all the categories next time. I love that friendly competition. It's a beautiful thing. Our team, obviously at Moz, is growing like mad. For those of you who know many people at SEO Moz, you're kind of like, who are all these new people? Where did they all come from? So the team today, I think, is right around 76, 77 folks full-time, and that's just tremendously impressive. I mean, this year, last year, this time, we were just about 50. So we've been growing pretty darn fast, and that's probably going to continue happening this year. We have to move offices at the end of this year because we can't fit in the Mozplex anymore. And of course, we're recruiting heavily. So as a call out, if you know any software engineers in Seattle, we still have our referral program where we'll give you $12,000 if you refer us an engineer, and we'll give the engineer a $12,000 referring bonus as well. I know a lot of you have already seen me and asked me, like, hey, what's it like having Brad Feld on the board, and what's Foundry like? Amazing. I can't even tell you how amazing. So I literally, right now in my inbox, I have 2 emails from Brad that are substantively helping us with the company. That's almost every day. I don't know how he can be involved in so many companies and help so many people this dramatically, but it is incredible. He came by the Mozplex and sat down for like a Q&A with our team, and it just felt like he was one of us. It felt like, oh, well, yeah, we would. Not only would we hire this guy for all his skills and his passion and that kind of stuff, but he's tag fee. He was tag fee before he knew what it was. He just fit in. It was wonderful. And their help has been really amazing. We do have some exciting announcements coming up in the next 30 days. We had some relatively big ones that we were considering announcing maybe at MozCon, and then we realized the Wi-Fi was probably not going to work, and so. No, but we will have some big, exciting announcements probably in the next 30 or so days, so watch for those. And I did want to mention one personal thing that is launching, so a couple personal things, actually. You might have seen for a long time, I've been very passionate about the fact that, how do Seattle get the same sort of respect and authority that places like Boulder and Los Angeles and New York have gotten with folks like, well, Brad, certainly, for Boulder, Fred Wilson for New York, Mark Schuster for Los Angeles, right? It's almost like one-man shows that have put their city on the startup map outside of Silicon Valley. And I've been urging tons of Seattle entrepreneurs and investors and technology people to do this, but of course, Fred was like, dumbass, how about you? So, what are you going to do? All right. You got to do it, you got to do it. So this is live as of today. If you go to moz.com/rand, you'll see a new blog from me. I can't promise for sure, but I am going to attempt to go back to my 2004 to 2008 blogging style and post every night, Sunday to Thursday night. So you will see a blog post from me 5 nights a week on this blog. If you're interested, check it out. It's going to be covering much broader topics than just marketing and SEO stuff, but hopefully interesting. I also know that many of you have been asking me about my wife, which is really, really touching, and I appreciate it tremendously. So for those of you who don't know, we had a super scary incident. Geraldine was having some headaches. She went into a doctor, got an MRI. She'd been having them for a long time, got an MRI, and they found they weren't expecting to, they found a tumor on her hypothalamus. And for about the first week, okay, first off, you know how people say don't Google things, like medical things? Oh my God, don't Google medical things. Oh, it's the worst. So the radiologist writes back to us and he's like, oh, 1 centimeter mass on the hypothalamus, worrisome for glioma. And if you Google that, you're like, okay, so you have between 3 and 11 years to live. There's the bad kind and there's the good kind, and super shitty, really super shitty situation. Luckily, fantastically luckily, we had, surrounded by great doctors, at Swedish, had a neurosurgeon who was tremendous, and the neurosurgeon came out of her brain surgery, I guess about 3 weeks ago tomorrow, 4 weeks ago tomorrow, and said, you're clear, it's not cancerous, it's a benign mass. We removed most of it, she's gonna be just fine. So that was awesome. And then, oh, yes. Really exciting. For those of you who know Geraldine, you won't be surprised by this at all, but for those of you who don't, you'll be weirded out. So she maintains her sense of humor no matter the situation. It doesn't matter how hard. So if you read her blog post on Everywhere, so you definitely got a sense of that. And then this next clip, nearly as soon as she woke up from the anesthesia, from the anesthesia, she's like, honey, did Crystal get you that picture? I'm like, what are you talking about? So Crystal's one of the new folks at SEO Moz. She's working up at the front desk. And she gave me a little photograph that had been laminated of Edward Furlong, the actor, the child actor. I'm like, yeah, here you go, honey. She's like, okay, video me.
Have you seen this boy, John Connor?
Are you kidding me? Yeah, I can't possibly describe. Anyway, being married to her is fantastic, and she's doing fantastic. She might even show up at some point today, which would be very exciting. I did want to call out a few people who are in the audience today, so some faces behind tools. So you're coming to a conference. We're a software company, obviously, so you get to meet us. But I also wanted to call out some of the other great folks that are in the audience. So I put out a call on Twitter. John Henshaw from Raven Tools is here. The folks from Zamanta, I think Greg is here. The guys from Follerwonk, Peter Bray is here. Shah from Remove is here, one of the link removal tools for those of you hit by Penguin. The guys from Crossfuse are here. The folks from CMS TMS, which is a translation service, GTP Hub for tracking, client tracking, and John Doherty, who's the mind behind Distilled U, the guy behind Distilled U, is also here. I would encourage you to talk to all of them. Great tool providers here, and certainly when you can encourage us to do what you want, you can also encourage them too. So a preview, we're going to have some amazing new tools that are going to be coming out. I think one of them later this afternoon. We are going to be having some new resources for marketers as well that are launching here. You're going to see some never-before-shared research from our data scientist, Matt Peters. Very cool stuff on web spam. You will be seeing all sorts of cutting-edge tactics from all the speakers that you won't see anywhere else, and fewer kitten deaths per slide deck than anywhere in the marketing world. I promise this. Very, very few bullet points, meaning very, very few kittens being killed. That's super appreciated. Because we get to go to so many events, we get to see a lot of speakers. We get to feel like we know who the people are in the industry who consistently deliver great experiences, and because of that, we get to invite some absolutely fantastic people to MozCon every year. But it's really you guys. It's your appreciation for them, your love, your tweeting, your sharing. But even in this audience, in this room, it is tremendously appreciated, not just by myself, but by everyone who speaks up here, that if someone gives you a great presentation, they give you something super valuable on this stage, please cheer for them. They love it, they appreciate it, it means a lot to them. It means a lot psychologically and personally, and it has a great impact on not just what you'll see this year, but what you'll see years in the future, too. We have some great after-hours events. Our first ever community speaker competition, which was won by 4 folks, and they're going to be presenting on Friday in a sort of rapid-fire method. That's going to be amazing. Don't forget, the very last session of the very last day is the Give It Up tips. So that's going to be, no blogging, secret stuff, but people sharing. I heard one tip, I think from Patty Mugen. That one alone is worth staying for, so make sure you stick around for that. And our first ever head-to-head, my head-to-head, against a Googler. Believe me, I'm going to be panicking for the next 48 hours to try and put together a deck good enough to beat Tom Critchlow. We'll see how that goes. Everyone, thank you so much for coming. Welcome to MozCon.